Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 105, dealing with the Equifax breach.
Life after Equifax.
I don't know there's such a thing.
Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Small Biz Life. And you know that on this show, if you've been listening for a while, that we like to deal with life topics as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the topics that's affecting a lot of people's lives right now is this Equifax breach.
Yeah, and we've just heard a lot of confusion, a lot of maybe good, maybe bad information growing around. And we just want to make sure that the people we interact with on this show and all of our shows have a place to go to sort of get a good breakdown of what's going on and what you can do about it.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of clients emailing me about this. I'm getting a lot of, private messages from people that I interact with on Facebook. You know, a lot of people have reached out to me and said, what do we do? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because there have been breaches before.
This is different.
But this one's different. Just because of who Equifax is, what the company does. So before we jump into that, if you're new to the show, I want to thank you so much for listening. You know, we're going to try to give you all the information that you need to know. If you go to the show notes for this episode at smallbizlife.com, you will get all the links to all the sites we're going to talk about today. So don't worry about trying to write everything down while you're listening.
Please don't.
If you're a returning listener, thank you so much for being here again. Thank you for sending people to this episode of the show. Thank you so much for helping us grow to where we've grown. So a little bit about us. My name's Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I am a CPA.
And I am a IT lord of Ingram Digital Media.
There you go. So this is something that's in both of our wheelhouses because Jeff deals a lot with technology. You know, I'm a CPA. I work with money. I work with numbers. I work with small businesses and individuals. So this is kind of something that just was a natural fit for us to talk about. Okay, so let's start. What is Equifax and why is this such a big deal? There are 3 credit reporting bureaus in this country. Whenever you submit, to apply for a credit card, to apply for a mortgage, to apply for a line of credit, to apply for a car loan, the company that you engage with to get that credit typically engages one of the 3 credit bureaus, and Equifax is one of them. Equifax has a tremendous amount of information about everyone in this country, which is really scary stuff. The other thing that's kind of scary about this one is that the breach so they reported this morning that I guess a tech company notified Equifax that there was a hole in their data security in March of this year. And all they had to do was install a patch. Yep. They did not install the patch.
And around mid-May, a breach started. Pretty big one. We'll get to the numbers in a second. And it went on until the end of July.
So that means that information was being taken potentially from their servers for about 2 months. Mm-hmm. And the public was not notified about this until a few weeks ago. So that's kind of scary stuff. The other reason that this is, that we're hearing about this a lot more and them getting a lot more people reaching out to me is potentially 143 million people in the U.S. were affected by this breach. Yeah. Which is basically most Americans with credit.
Yes.
Were affected by this breach.
Most adult Americans, and I'm sure some of those are children too, because somehow children get credit ratings as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. So potentially these 143 million people, what was stolen from those people? Their social security numbers,
ouch,
their name, their birthday, their addresses, and some people, their driver's license numbers were stolen.
And why this is so huge is losing your name and birthday and addresses have probably been lost in prior breaches. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things have probably already been given out to bad guys. Your SSN and your driver's license number are the two other numbers you need to apply for credit.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with the driver's license numbers too, most of the time when you go in to apply for credit, it's more difficult because they don't have the driver's license number. The driver's license number allows them to create a fake ID to get past a lot of those gatekeepers when you're applying for credit online. So this makes it much easier for the bad guys to apply for credit in your name.
And the thing I don't like is they reported that some driver licenses were stolen with the 143 million, but we don't unfortunately know the exact number of people that affected. But your SSN falls into bad hands. That's really bad. Your SSN and your driver's license fall into someone else's hands. That's even worse.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's the 143 million people. They all got their stuff, all that stuff.
Now,
stolen.
I know one of our big concerns was because they're a credit bureau, they know all of your credit cards. And so we were kind of worried when we first heard this that, do they have 143 million credit card numbers? And the good news is, according to Equifax, only 209,000 people, which is still a lot, but as a percentage, very small, lost their driver's license numbers as well.
No, their
credit card numbers as well. So that turns this into something different for you. And according to the FTC, Equifax is sending out notices to all of the people who had their actual credit card numbers stolen, and you will want to do. There's a lot more you should do at the point that your credit card numbers have been stolen, and we'll get into that a bit later.
Okay, but here's the thing. If you're one of the 143 million people, you are not going to receive anything from Equifax.
Yes.
So we're going to talk in a couple minutes about how you can check, but that really bothers me, that they are not required to share any other information with you. And if you're not proactive and you go look to see, you won't know.
And if you're a relatively private person and you assume that this doesn't affect you, you're probably wrong. If you've ever once applied for credit, you are going to be in Equifax's system. You don't get to opt into that. You get put into that.
Well, and here's the thing, even if you don't have a credit score, I know a lot of Dave Ramsey followers
have fallen off. Yeah.
But the problem is you still have a report with Equifax. It just says you don't have a credit score. So things like your driver's license number, your address, your birthday, that's still all saved in their database. Being
debt free for, I believe it's 7 years to drop to zero credit report does not mean you're safe.
Right, exactly. And you might have zero credit score. Usually if zero credit score takes 18 to 24 months if you have no open credit lines, but things stay on your credit for 7 years.
And your credit report will survive past the 7 years.
Exactly.
It will just have nothing listed, and it will have a zero credit score.
Yep, exactly. The other thing that really concerns me is that as we were digging around, I think you found this on the FTC website.
Actually, this was from the Equifax FAQ. And
okay.
I'll give you the website. I got that from in a few moments.
Okay. So, according to Equifax, 182,000 people in the U.S. had certain dispute documents with personal identifying information stolen as well.
And it could be other stuff like your mother's maiden name, birthplaces, this type of information, which is...
So if you've ever sent in information to Equifax because a piece of information was wrong on your credit report, they keep those documents as backup. Some people had those documents stolen.
Yeah.
So this could be, this could be letters that you paid off an account, right, that went into collections. This could be your mother's maiden name was wrong. This could be your social security number was wrong. So if you've ever submitted, and I know we've done this because you had an issue last year, any of those documents may have, you might be one of the 182,000 people that had those documents stolen.
And we don't know if they're a subset of the 209,000. We're pretty sure they obviously have to be a subset of the 143,000 U.S. citizens or 143 million, U.S. citizens that had the personally identifiable information stolen. The thing to keep in mind here is, especially if it's stuff that you've used, as password protections on other sites, this is all bad stuff.
Mm-hmm. And according to the Federal Trade Commission, if you are one of the 182,000 and you did not have your credit card number stolen, you will also not receive a notification.
Well, they didn't say you wouldn't, but nowhere said you would. So I would not assume that you did not. If you did not get a credit card notification, that means this other thing is safe. I would assume just the opposite.
Right. But that's the thing is, like, when you went to the FTC website, the only people that were specifically acknowledged that they would receive a notice are the people whose credit card numbers were stolen.
Correct.
So I would just assume that if you're in the 182,000, you're not going to receive a notice.
And now here's one little final bonus for if we happen to have any international listeners, which I know we have some. If you're from the UK or Canada and you're like, oh, poor U.S. citizens, I don't know if there's a website set up for you guys or not, but there appears to be UK and Canadian citizens who were breached as well.
Yay.
Thank you, Equifax.
Well, we got to share.
Now, they do claim that no other countries were affected, but you have to take them at that word.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So now that we've sufficiently scared you to death, we're going to talk about what you should do next.
Now, if you're a U.S. citizen, I know you're here if you've had a problem. I don't know if this is true for UK or Canadians because there was no demographic information like for the U.S. citizens.
Here's the thing. I would assume the site does not work for the UK and Canadians because it asks for a part of your social security number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm pretty positive it won't work.
I'm sure it's not set up for them.
Okay. So now you need to go to EquifaxSecurity2017.com, and there will be a link in the show notes. But this is the site that you can look up to find out if you were breached or not.
Right. So that's the first step.
And that will tell you if you're in the 143 million. I don't know if you're one of the credit card or document peoples. If it tells you that, I assume not.
Well, and here's the thing. It doesn't say, yes, you were. It says you may be.
Yes.
Or, you may, we do not believe that you were. Mm-hmm. So it's not a definitive yes or no. Probably because they'd get sued. So, but they will say, we believe that your information was involved in
potentially exposed.
Right. So, here's one thing I want to talk about. So if it comes up that, yes, yours was exposed, and Jeff and I were both exposed, of course.
I'm exposed all of the time. So,
well, you've gotten caught up in so many of these breaches that it's just, at this point, your social security number's trash anyways.
Yeah. So like I was exposed, my insurance company got breached. And I was also exposed, because I used to be what do you call that? A classified personnel for the Department of Defense.
You had security clearance.
I had security clearance, and that got hacked. Luckily, I'm not an active person with security clearance, or that could be maybe worse than this one. But since it's not, this one's actually worse for me than that one because I'm not really involved in the military anymore.
And you also had somebody who tried to steal your information from the IRS. Just yours, not mine, just yours.
Well, I'm sure that was from one of my pre-existing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's fun. So, so when you put in your information and it pops up that your information may have been stolen,
mm-hmm.
you are going to get an offer from Equifax for their free credit monitoring.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of confusion about their credit monitoring, and people are talking about that you lose all your rights to sue, and
they are largely at fault for this too, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, there are a number of attorneys generals that are suing Equifax, so that Equifax just stops selling their credit monitoring
mm-hmm.
because so many people are affected.
Yes.
Because what's happening is people are actually buying it by accident. Okay, so you don't want to buy it. You shouldn't pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Not from them.
Not from them. You may want to buy it from somebody else. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But they're going to offer you free credit monitoring. From the research we've done, it's not a great product, but it's something that's free. Equifax, after a whole bunch of people complained, they changed their terms of service. You do not lose your right to sue if you sign up for this. People who initially signed up, that was in the terms of service that they could not sue the company if they accepted the credit monitoring. That is no longer the case. And you can actually read that on the Equifax Security 2017 website.
Now, I'm not a legal professional, but I do believe, though, if your state's attorney general sues them, that might actually affect your ability to sue.
Well, they're suing for a different reason, though. Oh. They're suing to try to get Equifax to take down their paid product.
Okay.
Because they're getting complaints from people saying they're signing up for the product and getting charged for it because they're clicking the wrong link in the process.
Okay.
So that's kind of, and I know Connecticut's attorney general is in on that. That's where I initially heard of it.
But they're not suing in reference to the breach. Okay.
No. My fear, though, is that the states are going to come to some sort of settlement with Equifax, and then the people are going to get nothing. Mm-hmm. And the states will get a whole bunch of money.
Yes.
Because they're broke.
That has happened. I know two people specifically in the last time there was a major lawsuits by attorney generals, and the states got lots of money that did not benefit but were defrauded. So
that's what happened in the Target breach.
Yeah.
The state sued and the people
Target
got nothing.
Breach, and the mortgage crisis. If you were ripped off, you did not get any monetary compensation.
Yeah. So hopefully somebody will put together, some sort of class action lawsuit. But even if that happens, I mean, you're going to get 25 cents.
Yeah.
So for all of your time and troubles. Okay. So you can sign up for the Equifax free offer. Make sure that you don't click on anything that's going to cause you to get to pay for anything. This should be completely free. And just make sure that you read the terms of service to make sure that you retain your rights. In case you want to sue them later, or in case somebody sues on your behalf.
And I do believe if you want to sue them until you can show damages, it's going to probably be very difficult.
Yeah, but consult an attorney. Mm-hmm. The next thing that you can do is you can check your credit reports. Now, there are a couple easy ways to do this, and then there's a more difficult way to do this. So the difficult way is that you can contact Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion individually, and you can request a copy of your credit reports.
And I believe you can get it free quarterly from them.
You can get it free if you believe that there is an issue with your credit. Otherwise, they're going to try to charge you for it. Okay. Now, the U.S. government came to an agreement with the 3 credit reporting agencies probably about 10 years ago now, and created a website called annualcreditreport.com.
Yes.
What this website will allow you to do is it will allow you to get copies of all 3 of your credit reports once a year for free.
It's in the name.
Annualcreditreport.com. Look at that. So one trick that you can use, because you can only pull these once a year for free, is you can pull the reports one at a time. So you could pull Equifax first, wait 4 months, pull Experian, wait 4 months, pull TransUnion, and then basically you've gotten through the whole year. Most of the time, these 3 credit reports are the same. There might be a little bit of lag between them. Typically,
they might have some details in each of them that are slightly different, but the big stroke information that's important is going to be in all of them.
Right. So your open accounts are going to be the same on all of them. Sometimes things I find fall off of reports, some reports sooner than others. So typically it's like a 7-year rule for something that's closed to come off. But they seem to be a little bit different. There seems to be a little bit of lag. I think the agency where your credit is checked will typically put it on your report sooner than the other 2, because then they've got to wait to get the information from the other one. So, but it's not going to be a huge difference between the 3. Okay. So that's kind of one option. And that's annualcreditreport.com. And don't forget, you can go to the show notes for this episode. We'll have all of this information, all the links, bullet points for everything that we talked about. The site that we use something called Credit Karma.
Mm-hmm.
It's a free site. And there is an issue with Credit Karma, though. They don't check one of the bureaus.
Yes. They don't check Experian.
Okay. So, but Credit Karma will check Equifax and TransUnion.
Mm-hmm.
It will give you a credit score.
And it's like their own score, kind of based off of the same ideas as the other bureaus.
Right. So it's not exactly a FICO score, but it's fairly close. I know some of the major credit card companies now are doing free services. Discover Card has one. Capital One has one.
I think most of the major credit card companies now do.
Right, for free.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be something to look into also. I know Capital One does it, and I know Discover does it. So you might want to check with them and see if, but make sure it's free. You shouldn't have to pay for this because, like I said, Credit Karma is free. Annualcreditreport.com is free. So there are ways that you can do this for free. Okay. Now, I mean, the issue with these services, though, is that they're not going to be proactive with you. So, let's talk about some kind of other things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You can, you should be doing this anyways, but you want to be monitoring your credit card and your bank accounts.
Yes.
Looking for fraudulent activity.
Look at the charges you get, especially the ones that go through to your bank.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people you have a relationship with might actually make a mistake in their automatic billing to you. That has happened. Sometimes when you've broken relationships with companies, something happens and they accidentally charge you again when they should not. These are all ways you could be losing money right now without people trying to commit fraud or stealing from you.
Mm-hmm. And we actually just had that happen, that we canceled a relationship with a company and they automatically billed us annually anyways. So, it's good to kind of follow up with those things. I typically check our bank accounts weekly and our credit cards monthly. The reason I check the bank accounts more often is because, it's cash, right?
Yes.
That comes out of your account instantly. Whereas with the credit cards, I've got a little bit more time to dispute that before I actually have to pay the bill. But, when it's affecting my bank accounts, I want to know right away.
Exactly.
So that's just something you should do no matter what.
And when you think about what we said, your bank accounts probably were not given out in this, according to the information given to us by Equifax. However, if they were in if you were disputing something and there's your documents with bank account numbers, those could have also been exposed in this, on top of your social security number, on top of your driver's license, on top of your credit cards.
Well, and the thing is, I'm really concerned with debit cards. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yes.
Because if your debit card information was stored, that's something that I would be concerned with, is the debit card numbers. So, kind of, and I don't know how big that risk is, but, that's kind of the thing that I'm more concerned about than the bank account numbers.
If you were breached, it's probably worth talking to your bank to figure out what they think, especially if you found out your credit card numbers were revealed.
Mm-hmm. And now, and these are things that we're recommending like everybody do. And this is kind of good practice to do on a regular basis, even without this gigantic Equifax breach. So the next thing that you're going to want to look at, if you get one of the letters that says that you're one of the 209 people whose credit card numbers were stolen, you really need to be thinking about getting new credit cards. You need to be thinking about replacing your debit cards. And I know that is a horrible, awful thing.
Especially in a world with automatic payments set up through your cards. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. Typically in these situations when a credit card gets breached and that it's a particular card, we tell people to move everything over to another card, or to another debit card, and then get that card replaced. Yep. In this situation, you really can't do that. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you've got a list of everything that's running through your cards and which cards they're running through. And when you call your banks to ask them to be replaced, you really need to make sure they're expedited and you get them quickly.
Yeah.
It might also be a good idea, because I was thinking about this over the weekend. Make sure that you've got cash on hand to get you through this until you get your new debit card.
Yeah. Especially if you're getting ready to do it, go take some cash out of your account. However much you think you're going to need on hand. This is one of the reasons why we budget.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure to have at least the amount on hand. If they say 8 to 10 business days, assume 10.
Yep.
And take some cash out and then cancel the cards.
And sometimes with your local banks, you can actually go in and get a temporary ATM card. Mm-hmm. So at least you've got access to the ATM machine.
And this is one of the big advantages too, if you do have a branch in your area. Go talk to their customer service and say, hey, I'm going to need cash, but how do I, what's the best way to do this? And your bank is going to walk you through the bureaucracy of that bank, and they'll help you best get through it.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I know a lot of credit card companies, because they want you to use the cards, they'll expedite a card out to you, usually within 48 hours. I find it's the quicker banks. Yeah. I find it's the banks that are like, well, that's going to be 72 business days,
yes,
before you get it. So, but that's only if you receive the letter from Equifax saying you're one of the 200,000.
Remember, there's 143 million affected, but the credit card numbers, according to Equifax, are only 209,000. That's a small percentage.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you may want to consider doing is you may want to consider putting a fraud alert or freezing your credit with the credit bureaus.
And when you freeze it, you can do it either temporarily or permanently. If it's permanently, some states you're going to have to go back in and literally tell them to take it off, and that will cost you money. Whenever you remove a freeze, it will cost you money.
Yeah. And so make sure that you know the rules in your state, because as Jeff said, some of these are temporary. So some of them might only be 5 to 30 days. So you're going to want to make sure that you understand the rules in your state for freezing your credit.
Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons that freezing your credit is not always super helpful is because up to 70% of credit card companies and other loan providers will not check your credit before issuing credit.
The only real advantage is it's evidence that you did not take the card out if you froze your credit. And it'll be easier to fight any erroneous credit cards that come up, because you're like, listen, you did this 5 days after I put my credit freeze. You screwed up. And, the thing is, once you get to this point, it's your time that you'll be losing. Even if the bank is very helpful, you're going to probably lose an hour or two of your life per incident, at least. And that's if they believe you.
Yeah, because I know when we did it, when you had an issue with your card, it was a pain in the butt.
And it was obvious that it was stolen, and they believed me. But it took probably at least, I'd say 4, maybe 8 hours to go through all of the steps to take care of this stuff.
Yeah, fill out all the paperwork, sit on hold. Yeah, it was
painful.
So, one of the reasons that freezing your credit might not be a good option is if you have an issue with the IRS and your identity getting stolen through the IRS. So I've had a couple clients come up to me and be like, all right, I want to be super proactive. I am going to fill out form 14039 with the IRS and say that my identity was stolen. Okay. And that is the form that we use if someone has, if their identity has been stolen. We also use this form if we try to e-file a tax return and the tax return doesn't go through because a tax return has already been filed. Which is fun. We also typically file this form when a family member passes away. There is a lot of Social Security number fraud when someone passes away because the government publishes their Social Security numbers. It becomes
public at that moment, and that's not good.
Right. So this, so the form 14039, you can find it on the IRS website. But there's a couple reasons why you don't want to use this form. So first of all, the IRS is saying don't fill it out unless you know that someone has tried to file a fraudulent tax return for you. The IRS is not being proactive with this.
No.
If you file this form just because of the breach, and there's actually a section on the IRS website that talks about data breaches, they will not approve your request.
Yeah. And there will be a link to the IRS fraud or data breaches in the show notes. So you can go there to learn more.
So you can take a look at that. So you might go through this process and the IRS says no. If the IRS says yes and they assign you what's called an IP PIN, this is something that you are going to have to deal with for the rest of your tax life.
It's going to change every year. If you lose the document they send you with your new PIN, you're going to have to go through a process to get it again. And the IRS servers have also been breached and could potentially be breached again in the future. So even your PIN might get stolen. So, I mean, it's not foolproof.
Right. It's not foolproof. It's something, like Jeff said, you're going to get a new PIN every year for the rest of your life. You must put that number on your taxes when you e-file, or you cannot e-file your tax return. You cannot process the 14039 if your credit is frozen. So and it's funny because Equifax is the one that they check with. So if your credit is frozen, the IRS cannot process the 14039. Okay. So really, the thing that I tell people, the best thing to do is to file your taxes early and make sure you're not going to get a big refund.
Yes. Or no refund. And we talk about this once again as a best practice for your tax life anyway. But we know there's so many people who use this as a savings plan, and they don't care that they lose so much money because of it, because they don't have the discipline to do this on their own. It's time to respect yourself enough to help protect yourself by not putting your money at risk. If you're planning to save $12,000 for a big vacation through the IRS, someone files that return first. It's going to take you a while before the IRS gets it figured out, and then we'll finally give you your money, but it's a long process that you're going to have to battle with the IRS over.
Right. So here's kind of what happens. If somebody files a tax return fraudulently on your account and claims a refund, and then you file your tax return also claiming a refund, you are going to have to wait until the IRS figures all of this out. Typically, this can take 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. I've heard stories where people have waited a year to get their refunds. And so that's the thing. If you're expecting $5,000-$6,000 as your refund,
especially if you've planned,
you might be waiting a really long time for that money. So, if this is something you're having issues with, reach out to us. You can contact us through the Facebook group or through our page. And I've actually got some videos on YouTube talk about how to, if you're still working, how you can cut your withholding. But it does not make good financial sense to get a big refund.
No.
And this is just another reason why. Okay. So, so if your credit's frozen, can't do it. The IRS might refuse it anyways, even if you send in the form. So this is not a foolproof way to protect yourself. Best thing you can do, just file early.
And once again, it might also be stolen your information from them. So, the question really comes is, is there a good way to really protect yourself, in this age? And I think that's really the key is what's the best thing to do. And there are lots of credit monitoring services, and they're good because they'll let you know if something goes bad, but they won't do anything for you. There are some that come with insurance, essentially. I don't know if it's technically considered insurance, but they will spend up to X amount of dollars on your behalf to do all of that legwork. That 4 to 8 hours I spent when someone put a fraudulent credit card out in my name, I would have not had to worry about if I had had one of these services at the time.
And that's really, I think, what you're looking for in a credit protection service is you're looking for somebody that is going to do the work for you if there is a credit card taken out in your name, some other issue that you have on your credit report. So the two services that we really like, LifeLock is one of them, and they're kind of like the standard. Yeah, and they've been out there for a long time.
The reason we go to them is they have a record of protecting you from having your credit services screwed with. People won't be able to take credit cards out in your name, and if they do, they'll help clear up all of that information for you. The problem is, especially with some of the stuff that comes through here, is it doesn't really protect your social security number unless they use it to try and get a new credit card. And there are other types of things, payday loans. There are other types of things like maybe Social Security fraud that someone might try and perpetrate on you, which are not protected because of this. So I found another one, which we will be moving to, called ID Shield. And the neat thing with them is they monitor the same stuff that LifeLock does. And if you do have a problem, there's going to be a private investigator on their team that they've certified. And I don't know all the details of the certification process, but one liaison between you and the company to fight, and they'll go up to $5 million to protect you. And they'll also protect you against stuff like payday loans and other types of activities that include Social Security fraud.
So, I think the other difference between the two, LifeLock is much more expensive.
Yeah.
To get the same level of coverage that you get with ID Shield, you're probably looking at about $70 a month. And
I don't think you can up the monetary value.
Yeah.
So it's still going to be $1 million versus $5 million spent on your behalf.
The nice thing with ID Shield is it's kind of like a family package. So for $20 a month, it's going to cover 2 adults and up to 8 children. And, when you're going through the Equifax website to check to see if you were breached, also put in your children's information.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
We're finding that people are getting a hold of children's Social Security numbers and trying to open credit in their name.
And this has been a minor problem for years. I think we would both suggest that you just freeze your kids' credit, and upon their 18th birthday, let them know that if they want to pay, they can get it unfrozen.
There you go. So, the thing with ID Shield is that they're a newer company on the market, but a lot of the companies that, kind of rank and monitor these, they're, they kind of are considering this like the best new, the best new product. So it'll be interesting to kind of see like, next year how they go.
Yeah, I kind of like to think of them as like a 2.0 version of what has been out there for identity protection. And we'll see. I think if they make a big enough splash, it will change some of the old players around too.
Yeah, I think you might see some pricing pressures on LifeLock for them to drop their pricing down. So, and just some kind of common sense preventative things that you should do. If you are ever out in public using public Wi-Fi, you want to have a VPN.
Yeah. And I recommend one here called NordVPN. Great service. And once again, whether it's your phone or your laptop, no matter what you're using, if you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi, like at your Starbucks or wherever you're at to try and get, or in a hotel room, when it's a public, especially, they're almost always unencrypted networks. Your information is being exposed to people on those networks. And these networks are used to steal information. So you always, when you want to go out, like when we travel, I use VPN. When we don't travel, I don't. So it's not something you necessarily need every month of your life. Depends on how much you travel. But if you're going to travel, it's worth a few bucks a month to make sure that you can actually safely avoid people looking into your computer or looking at what you're typing.
Right. And here's the thing, I know a lot of people, they save on their data plans because like Xfinity and Cox and some of the other cable providers have these huge Wi-Fi networks. I know when I'm driving around, my phone keeps changing, okay, now you're connected to this Xfinity, and you're connecting to different Wi-Fi networks that they have. That is a public network, right?
Yeah. Most definitely.
And so if you're kind of relying on these different public networks rather than using your data plan, you need to have a VPN on your phone.
And if you don't know if your home network is protected, which it should be, it's worth find someone local to you who works on networking who can just come in and give it a checkup.
Yeah, and I know most routers now, I know like our router will allow us to do this. You can set up a secure network. And then you can also set up a guest network that has a guest password. And so if you have people coming into your house who are using your network, you can set up a second network for them so that they don't have to go onto your main network.
Yeah. And it helps protect like the stuff you're sharing within your home.
Yeah, exactly. So
and that's you can throttle down their bandwidth.
So that's a really good idea as well. If you ever have friends come over or whatever who want to use your Wi-Fi, it's just a good way to kind of protect yourself. Okay. And then I think probably one of the most important things that you can do, I know a lot of us, we use the same passwords over and over again, or, maybe we have, virtual assistants that work with us and web designers who work with us. And so we are just kind of, chucking passwords all over the place. And typically that's the same password we use for everything. Yeah. So one product that we really love, and we use this extensively in our lives, is LastPass. LastPass is a password vault that will work across your computers
or devices.
So like it works great on my cell phone. But what it allows us to do first, it allows you to share passwords with other people without actually giving them the password.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes like I can send my password to so-and-so. They can use it and launch it from even a free version of LastPass. If they don't use LastPass, they'll have a free version that can hold a certain number, and they can have the password. They can't even see what it is. All they can do is sit there and launch it and be able to get into the page with my credentials. And then later on, if I'm done with their services, I can then just unshare it. I don't have to worry about changing it and then changing it through all my devices because I've just shared it in the browser on my devices.
And we actually, we share each other's passwords this way as well. So if we subscribe to a service, or, if I want Jeff to be able to post as me on Facebook, I can share my password with him, and, it's seamless. Yeah. It's great.
And when someone like your spouse, if you want them to have the actual credentials, like, okay, so Jeff can actually see and maybe even change my password, but this other person I have who has access to it can only launch it.
Yeah.
They can't even look at it.
And it's, so that's one reason I really like it, is because I can share access and I can remove access whenever I want. So, let's say that, you've got somebody who's working with you and then you abruptly change that relationship. Well, what are you doing? You're running around trying to change all your passwords. What did they have access to? In this case, you don't have to do that. You can just shut off their access to LastPass.
Yep.
It's a wonderful thing. So the second thing that this does is it will do a scan that will tell you where you're using duplicate passwords, and then it will allow you to go to those sites and change them.
Yeah.
And create strong passwords for each site. The nice thing with the sharing is, let's say that you're going through this process and, the electric company and the gas company and the cable company all have the same password, and you've shared that with your husband or your wife. Now I can just say, okay, update those passwords. They'll update through LastPass, and they'll automatically update Jeff's access through LastPass.
Yeah.
So I don't have to say, oh no, honey, these passwords are all changed and here are all the new passwords. It's a wonderful, and it's, what do we pay? Like $12 a year for that? It's really cheap.
It's really cheap.
This is one of those that, like, absolutely positively you must have. I know that they're coming out with a family plan. I think that might be out already. So if this is something that, you want to be able to share passwords across your family without giving them to your kids, you can do that.
Like, yes, little Johnny, here's the password for Netflix, but if I want to take it away from little Johnny, I can unshare it with him, and he can't, and change the password. He can't get into anything anymore.
And the cool thing with that too, I know with the family plan, they're actually doing time restrictions. So if you don't want little Johnny to be able to access Netflix after 7:00 at night, he can't.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So, we hope that we'll definitely, LastPass is a great product.
And we do suggest, if you're interested in some of these services, there will be links in the show notes. Some of these are affiliate links, so we'd really appreciate if you go to the site and actually click through if you want to use LastPass or ID Shield. We might or might not. We're trying to get some affiliates set up with some of these companies, but if you do, we would really appreciate it because it helps support the show, and you're not purchasing anything or spending any extra money that you normally would.
Right. And these are all services that, that we either currently use or we have used in the past. We're familiar with them. They're good, solid companies. They will take really good care of you.
We will use companies and share out their information, even if they refuse to give us an affiliate link, if we think that they're the best.
But, we'd appreciate, if you do buy any of these, go to smallbizlife.com, click on the show notes for this episode, because it helps us to help you.
And lastly, there are lots of people who are confused. Some people, I think most people know about it at this point, but maybe not even everyone. If you know someone who could be at risk, share this episode with them. It's 143 million people. Let's make sure we can get some good advice into the ears of people. So share this out with at least 2 people. That's your Good Samaritan act of the week.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's like, we all want to protect our friends and family. And I know there is a lot of confusion about this. So, go share this out on Facebook, share this out on Twitter, help other people get the clarity that they need, because I know when I first heard about this, like, it scared the bejesus out of me. Because just the potential of how much information they have. And
doing the research does not make us feel any more comfortable.
So, and the other thing too is if you still have questions, after listening to this episode, go to facebook.com/group/smallbizlife. You can connect with us there. That is our small business community. But it's a great place to ask us questions.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
This was Small Biz Life.